Hello and welcome to Build Your SaaS. This is the behind the scenes story of building a web app in 2025. I'm Justin Jackson, co-founder of Transistor.fm.
And I'm Harris Kenny, founder of Outbound Sync.
Yes. Now, Harris and I have known each other for a while. Longtime listener of Build Your SaaS, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to have Harris on because he sent me an email with the subject line, I did it. I built my SaaS. And Harris has been sharing his story with me over the years. I know he's had multiple attempts. And I think what was exciting to me, Harris, is just this is hard. Like doing this, building a SaaS, building a software as a service product, and getting it to profitability is really tough and usually takes multiple attempts, as we'll hear. So I wanted to have you on because I think your story will be encouraging to folks who are in it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate being on, man. I mean, yeah, I listened to the show for years. And I had a bunch of attempts and always kind of look up to you from afar. We almost met in person at Podcast Movement when it was in Denver, and we missed.
Yeah, how did that? Because I was looking at that email too, and I was like, so you had emailed me like, oh, I'm going to go to Podcast Movement in Denver, and then we just never crossed paths.
Well, I was only there for a little bit. It was when things were really crazy at that time.
Okay.
I try to remember what year that was. But things were a little crazy at that time. And so I just didn't have a lot of time. So I was like, okay, I want to go. And I'm like, I hope I'll catch Justin, check out the booths. But if I don't catch him, so I just like, it was like, well, what you've talked about for years of just like no margin. Like I've just been living a no margin life for a while. Yeah. And so it was one of those situations where like I was late and I had to leave early and I hoped I caught you, but it was just too tight. But like there's a future with more margin where you're like, my friend's in town, I'm going to go do this thing. And like, I have time to do that. And I just like haven't had that.
Yeah. Time. I mean, I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people. As an aside, this is something I've been thinking about for a while is, you're a part of this Mega Maker community that I've been running since 2013. And I'd like to do some more like real life meetups with Mega Maker folks. And maybe I have to take my son to university in Toronto this summer. So I was thinking, oh, maybe we could do a meetup in Toronto. Where are you based out of, by the way?
I'm based in Denver.
You're in Denver. Okay. So I'm going to try to do some like on both sides of the continent. And hopefully we can still hang out in person.
Definitely. I mean, assuming nothing tragic happens. But I mean, I'm here and I would love to. And I joined Mega Maker, but then left. And I had joined a bunch of things and left kind of like in the early days.
Yeah.
And
why did you leave? You just felt like it was too much, not like what was the reason?
Like everything. So like I got off Twitter, I left MicroConf, I left Mega Maker. So I spent a period in the beginning. So I quit my job in 2019.
Yeah, let's go back to that. Okay, 2019, you quit your job.
Quit my job. I had a bunch of bosses, and my wife and I were thinking about starting a family and having kids, and I just like couldn't envision being able to do the things I would want to do as a husband and dad in these like work environments I'd had for the previous decade.
Just because they were, it was long hours or stress?
Just not like a lot of flexibility. It's like, and like, well, what if I like need to go to an appointment? And the boss that I had at the time it's like, well, we don't really want you here. It's like, well, yeah, but like, I can just like do this stuff later on my computer. Like it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't feel like I would be able to do it the way I wanted to be.
I remember like, I had a great, like when I got into tech in 2008, I had a great boss. But even then, I remember there being some things that grated on me. One was I didn't like other people looking at my screen while I was working. Like, because in truthfulness, like my day now, if you looked at my screen, you might not have any idea of what I'm doing. You know, like it could look like I'm wasting my time. It could look like I'm just sitting there thinking. A lot of my time these days is spent thinking. And so I didn't like people looking at my screen. And my joke back then was, if I kept Excel open on my screen all day, people would assume that I'm working and productive, but I could be doing absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah.
And then the second thing was, it felt so, not humiliating, but to ask for time off always felt like this, like I had to prostrate myself in front of, like, can I please have some time off? And it just always felt like, why do I have to ask for permission? I want to be in a position where I don't have to ask for permission to, take some time off or whatever.
Yeah. Well, do you remember Shawshank Redemption? You ever see that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Where like
It's been a while.
after they leave and they're out. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
It's like 20 years old, but spoiler alert if you haven't seen it yet. They have a hard time like going to the bathroom because they're so used to like asking for permission.
Oh,
they're
yeah.
like, and they're like, oh, God, it just like reminds me of that. And yeah, I mean, I felt like it just felt arbitrary. I mean, I was in a role where I was in that position, performance based. Part of it was like commission or performance kicker based on the team meeting its sales goals, but nobody else was.
Yeah.
So like I would need things. I would be like, hey, like, could we get this? Could I get, like, I just did a case study with a customer.
Yeah.
Can I put it on the website somewhere?
Yeah.
And the web team's like, yeah, we don't have like time for that. I'm like, okay, well, I need to be able to share it with people.
Yeah.
So then like I ended up putting it up like on GitHub or something.
Yeah.
And then they linked the GitHub thing from the support center because the support team was willing to let me put it in there. And it was like, why is this so hard? And it was like, hey, I want data about who we've sold to. And they were like, yeah, our system doesn't really, like, it's in there, but there's no UI. So I had done a little bit of SQL and database stuff in business school. So anyway, I was just downloaded like dbeaver and I was doing my own SQL queries, doing all of this stuff when it's like,
this is definitely the DNA of a entrepreneur. I think like there's that feeling of, it's not truly oppressive, but there's these corporate structures that can just feel like they're gating you in. And if you're a fast horse and you just want to run, this feeling of being gated in is such a frustrating feeling. Like good companies and good teams, I think, will reward that behavior, that kind of taking initiative and I'm gonna make sure this happens, or here's a great suggestion, or like, let's do this. And I think kind of old oppressive teams will they just kind of suffocate or suppress you, or make it harder for you to contribute in a meaningful way.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that like the company was well run and profitable and doing well. And so I was like, this is probably a me thing. But I was like, look, I've had like a few jobs at this point. Like at some point, maybe I'm the problem here. And like, maybe I need to do the different thing, because it's like nothing that they were doing there was like obviously on its face. Like, how could you, how dare you, it was just like, grating. It just felt like suffocating. But it's like, but it made sense. Like, yeah, this isn't the web team's problem. It's not that big of a deal. Like, sorry, it's not a priority. But anyway.
Oh yeah. I think this is the realization is, it's, if you're a fast horse and you want to run, there's just some structures that aren't going to work for you. And that's fine. Like if the boss or the team or the culture or the business model or the market just necessitates something else. Like if you really want a remote job, but the company is really a on-prem culture and you need to be there, well, you're just not the right fit for that place.
Totally.
And I think what drives a lot of founders is that feeling of, you know what, I'm never going to be really, I mean, we're never really satisfied at all, but I'm never going to like really be kind of in my zone of genius until I'm able to be doing this on my own. Like nothing will satisfy this itch until I'm in charge and I'm calling the shots and it's all reliant on me, but yeah.
That's definitely it. Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. I said, if I can get a project for 50% of my income. So at the time we had our first house. Yeah. We had our first mortgage. But that was like, so I didn't need a W-2. to get approved for the mortgage.
Yeah,
so
that's a key point.
Thing, check. Yeah.
Always get your mortgage before you quit your job.
Yeah, definitely. Because you can always drive Uber, but they're not going to approve you if you're driving Uber. But there's like a difference between showing you're making money and actually being able to make the money, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever your ride share of choices.
Yeah.
So, or whatever, DoorDash. So I was like, okay, we have the house. My wife was finishing her PhD, and which was like itself a long journey, and I was supporting throughout, which happy to do, like more than happy to do, but just like kind of the financial realities of the situation. And we hadn't had kids yet. So it felt like, okay, this is the window.
Yeah.
If I can get half of my current pay in contracts or projects, I will quit my job. And I had built up a pretty good network from my previous jobs. I helped scale a 3D printer company from 14 to 2019. We'd gone from 1.7 to $20 million in revenue as like a hardware manufacturer. It was really hard, but I learned a lot and I met a lot of people because it was a really high visibility thing. So anyway, that's a whole other story for another day. But I had this other job in the meantime and worked my network. I got my commitments basically. So I incorporated on April 1, 2019. I got my commitments. I quit my job May 1.
And these were commitments for projects? Like these were clients?
Go to market, client consulting, like, let me help you with your sales.
Okay. So you emailed a bunch of people, said, hey, I'm looking to make the jump.
Yeah.
I need some clients. Will you be my client?
Exactly.
And you got commitments from enough of them that you felt like, okay, I could. And what did those commitments look like? Like there was just a pipeline of work? Like you had 6 months of work? Or
let's do it. Like signed, closed, contract signed. Okay. We're going to start next week. So I was like, okay, I'll work weird hours. I'll make this work until I can get to 50%.
Got it.
So I waited until people were like, okay, we're going, we'll pay you kind of thing.
And did you have a goal in mind? Like I need to get this number of people on retainer or?
It was just half of my income. I forget exactly what my income was at the time.
Yeah.
But it was just half. I figured if I could get to half, then I could get the other half is what my guess was.
Yeah.
So I saw one contract. Basically, one contract was enough, but it was only a 2-month contract. So I was like, okay, I've got 2 months of half my income.
Yeah.
Let's go. So I quit my job and I figured once I quit, I would, and I talked to some other kind of mentor type people at the time. And I thought like, once I quit, I'm going to unlock 40 hours a week of time.
Yeah.
And so like, I'll be able to do way, way more with that time. So, and that was right. By the end of June or by the end of May, by the time I got to June. So I was back to my old income within a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it was like, oh, okay. And it was just me in my house with one laptop. So it was like all profit margin with no expenses. And so it was a really good start.
But that drive, some people quit their job. They have all this extra time and they find it's actually the opposite. Without somebody driving them, without somebody pushing them, they don't have that relentlessness you need to go out and find clients.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good litmus test. It's like, once you have the time, do you have the drive? Like there was times where, like after I'd quit my job, there was times where, for example, course sales weren't like enough. And I was like, I got to go build some WordPress websites for people. And it's just this like dogged, relentless drive to say, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to email 100 people until I sell, 10 website contracts, and I'm going to build them all and then, live to see another day.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the anticipation of like that we would be starting our family. I mean, let me think about the timeline here. This was 2019. So like within a year or so, our daughter was born. And so I think that was like, I had this in my head of like, I've got to kind of get this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
Because things are, so that to me was a big motive. I can't disentangle that.
Yeah. Yeah. Dependence is that's true. Actually, like before I had kids, I didn't have that same drive that I did after. Once I realized, like, wow, this is expensive. This is just like,
it just keeps going up.
Yeah. And expensive in a sense, like it's expensive with your time, your energy, but your money. It's just like, you can't just live in a one bedroom condo anymore. You've got to get more space. You got to get a car. You got to get a car seat. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. There's just hard cash flow hits that come with that.
Yeah.
You know,
so 2019, you launch this, you get some clients. COVID hit in 2020. So
yeah,
what did that affect you at all, or what?
Yeah. So terrible timing. Just couldn't have done it worse in a lot of ways.
Why? Because it affected it poorly?
It was just so stressful. And then we were expecting at the time.
Yeah.
So like, every time I got in the beginning, it was really unknown. And then especially because we were expecting during that time, it was really anxiety inducing. And I think the biggest thing I realized was like, what if I get sick? Yeah. So I had these clients and it's going well, but like, they're just really paying me to talk to them.
Yeah.
About stuff. Yeah. And like, we're getting some results definitely, but like a lot of this business is just like, I've been doing this I was working with a lot of hardware companies at the time. And so I just had a lot of like offhand things of like, oh, well, you should talk to this distributor. They would like totally pick that up. And like, I knew that because I had been doing it for 7 or 6 years. Yeah. So that was like worth it for them. Yeah. But I was like, what if I get sick and I can't take that call? Yeah. Like, are they going to keep paying me? Probably not. Yeah. So it felt very fragile. And so this is when I started discovering, and I forget the exact date, but like I joined MegaMaker and I started listening to Build Your SaaS and Startups for the Rest of Us. And I joined MicroConf.
Were you familiar with software as a service or web apps, or like, was that, you came from like a world where you're selling hardware? Yeah. Okay. I didn't have software background. I mean, I had done like ERP consulting in 2013 as an account executive. I mean, so no, I mean, I never worked for a SaaS company at all. I never worked for a company that had $1 in SaaS revenue. How did it even come on your radar? Like, how did you, I found Rob Walling's stuff first. Okay. And that tipped me off in SaaS. And then I found Build Your SaaS and Transistor. Okay. And then it just kind of like was like, because what I wanted was like to take care of my family and to build a good business. So then it's like, what kind of business? And so because of like the pressures of COVID and family, and like I'm in my late 30s right now. Yeah. And so, and I had like finished business school. I had, I think, very compressed learning cycles. Yeah. Of like very quickly, like, this is a good idea. Let's go. Okay. But it can be better. And just like, it's taken a long time to get here, but within this, there's been like really tight learning loops. Yeah. And then it was like, oh, like, this is it. Like, I went out to work on my own because I want my own business, because I want to be present as a dad and provide my family. And like, this is the best way to do it. It is a SaaS. I need to figure out how to have a SaaS somehow. I mean, it doesn't seem that long if you think about it, it's been 6 years. So yeah, it's been 5 or 6 years since you even kind of realized what the SaaS market, industry, category, how it worked. So that's pretty compressed. Yeah, I mean, I guess in hindsight, yeah. Yeah. It feels like a long time. It feels like a long time. But I mean, once my actual idea hit, it was like, it took off really quickly. So it was a lot of tight, hard learning, and then, but like having to maintain cash flow the whole time. Yeah. There was no like, oh, I'm going to go on the sabbatical and think about it. It was like, I'm staying up late to try to figure out how to do this thing, because during the day I'm on client calls and stuff. I think what's interesting is that pull that you just described, I think is quite common for people investigating, especially this space, because that was always the promise, is like, okay, what do I desire? Well, I don't want to work a job. Then you try consulting and you're like, okay, consulting works, but you have to keep this thing every sales cycle you're starting from zero again. I mean, it's not really zero, but it's like, it can feel like that. Oh no, it definitely. Yeah. I mean, basically is, unless you start developing IP and, Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason I say it's not always from zero, because you still have your network, like you still have former clients you can go back to and say, hey, let's do another engagement or whatever. But it can feel like you're always starting from zero. And then there's the stress of that, and like delivering projects on time, and, and like, even like having to wake up early. I had to wake up early and do calls with people in Sweden. So it was like, I had to wake up at 4 a.m. or something. I was like, this is tough. And so then you search for, okay, what are some other options? And you're like, oh, recurring revenue. Like if I could just have, instead of having to rebuild it every sales cycle, every month or every quarter, just every month new stuff can come in, and then you go out and look for solutions, and it's like, oh, I could build a SaaS business.
Exactly. So that's how I kind of landed on it. But then I'm like, okay, I got to learn about SaaS. So I join all these things, and I'm like super active on Twitter at the time, just like absorbing. And I feel like I was just in like, just downloading, just constantly downloading little things and thinking about surfing and all these analogies and the stair step method and but I think like in general, what I was feeling was like, okay, this is like too much learning. I need to be like doing now. I need to like start like testing ideas on like, where is this idea going to come from? How can I turn this consulting business into maybe something that's like a little bit more of an engine so I can make more money or just free up a little bit more time. So it kind of converted into a little bit more of an agency. Because at the time, like email deliverability started to become like a little bit of an issue discussed in some of these corners of the web. And most of my clients, they wanted to talk to me, but if they were really hard, like, and clear, they would say, well, I want leads. Like I'm talking to you and I like your advice and there's some really good ideas in here, but like ultimately, what do we need? We need new leads for our business. And like, can you get us leads? And I had never done that before. The companies I'd worked with in hardware, it's different. The go-to-market is really different. And so I just started learning cold email. I bought a cold email course for like $100 on Twitter. And so I started learning cold email and started building an agency around outreach as like an extension of this consulting service. And so then I started getting really deep into that world. And we became a HubSpot solutions partner. We were doing outbound. And then I like the landscape started to like sort of emerge of like, okay, these are the tools I'm using. These are gaps between these tools. This is how they charge. This is like what's annoying. And then within that, I had like a few different ideas. But so I left the communities and stuff, not because I didn't like them, but because it was like, what I need next is not here. What I need next is out somewhere in the market. And like nobody here is going to be the one who's going to be my first customer and so I only have so many. And at this point, my daughter was born. I was just like, okay, I don't have that much time. So I got to go. And so I literally deleted Twitter. I literally left like everything.
Dude.
And I just started spending like all this time on LinkedIn. And to kind of like, so that was kind of that transition period in the beginning of what was like testing ideas.
This is so key. Like you're going to need some foundation of knowledge, but after you've got a reasonable foundation, you need to go out and do stuff. You need to go out and start building things. And I felt this, like, I started the Product People podcast in 2012. And, after a year of doing these interviews, I felt like I got to stop doing these interviews and I've got to do something. Like I got to launch something. Exactly the same as you. Like this is until I start putting this into practice and really feeling it. It's just like anything. It's like I can describe to you the mechanics of snowboarding, but until I get you out on the hill and you start to actually try it out, the head knowledge is fine, like for you to have the basics, but you need to start, you need to just start going down the hill at some point. Yeah,
exactly. You got to land on your butt and be like, okay, that was fine.
So that's, I think that's great that you had that self-knowledge, probably driven by the fact that you didn't have very much time.
That was it. It was like, oh man. And it was kind of like a little sad because it was like, oh, like this is fun. Like I like talking to these people. Like this is funny. This is my community. I'm home alone. I have no real coworkers. Like all my friends have jobs, and then we have a young kid. And so I don't have a lot of time in general. Like when I'm not working, I'm trying to be a dad as best I can and trying to be a husband. And so it was like a little sad, honestly, but I just didn't feel like I had like all of these things. I felt like I didn't have a really good alternative. It just felt like I got to do this. If I want to move forward, I have to make some changes here, and it's going to be, a little uncomfortable, but I just don't, what's the alternative?
Okay. So you get this agency going.
Agency's going.
And it's working, or what happened?
Like it's working. I'm acquiring customers. like I'm starting to like feel what it's like to get on a wave a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because with my consulting, like I had this feeling of like, yeah, I've got these relationships, but like I don't have that many relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point, like this is going to go away, and then what?
Yeah.
But now with the agency, it was like, oh, this is a problem. People are landing in spam. They need new leads. Like I can productize around this. There's some tooling around this. Like, and so it was working. I was getting customers, retaining customers. It wasn't taking off because it was me. I had contractors who, some of whom were really wonderful, but like I was never able to fully delegate. So it had these ebbs and flows as I tried to balance sales and delivery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then, and this is like the worst, you're not supposed to do this. This is like the worst advice. I think maybe the lowest paying client I ever had in the history of my agency. I mean, I think I have to go back and check, but I mean, he was paying me almost nothing.
Yeah.
Because some months you're like, sure, okay.
Yeah. Exactly. You got to hustle.
He was like, I really want this cold email data from SmartLead. I really want it in HubSpot.
Mm.
And I was like, oh yeah, like we're a HubSpot partner. Everyone in HubSpot always talks about inbound.
Yeah.
In fact, everyone in the HubSpot ecosystem is constantly like, at this time, really posturing against outbound. Like that's the whole positioning of HubSpot is inbound. So they're constantly criticizing it. And I was like, well, that's kind of an interesting thing to be like the outbound person in HubSpot ecosystem. Like nobody's saying that. That would be, and then it made sense to me. Like, well, yeah, of course you would want this there. Yeah. You get a lead and then you need to manage it and they become a deal and then you close the deal and then they become a customer. Like, yeah, right. Like, duh. Why isn't anybody doing that? And what I didn't realize at the time, but I now realize is that like these tools were very like on the edge. They were like growth hacking tools, and bigger companies that had those requirements weren't using them. Or they weren't using them like they use the rest of their tools. Yeah. So it was like a bet basically at the time of like, if this way of generating new leads takes off, then new tools will be required to like coordinate or orchestrate the new tools with the old tools. Yeah. If it takes off.
Okay. So a client is paying you to help them manage. When you say outbound, you're talking about sending cold email, trying to get leads. Yeah. And this client says, this is good. They weren't paying you. They weren't a high value customer, but they said, this is good. I really want this. Like once you get me a lead, I want this to move into HubSpot, which I'm using as my CRM. And then as you were looking at HubSpot, you're like, oh, this is weird because HubSpot's whole philosophy was all around content. Like you use content to attract leads. So they're inbound leads. They sign up on your blog post to get the PDF. Yeah. And then you manage the relationship that way. But not a lot of people using HubSpot were starting with outbound.
No. Yeah, at least not publicly. Yeah. But then I realized like actually quite a few of our HubSpot clients are doing outbound. Yes. And actually HubSpot themselves has a huge sales team. Yeah. With like a few hundred salespeople. And they totally do outbound. Yeah. So this seems like a gap. Like this is an opportunity. Exactly. Yeah. So what did that translate into? What did you do with that information? So I started to build something. So I started to build it in make.com. Okay. SmartLead had webhooks. And I thought, okay, well, I can take these webhook payloads, like as these events occur in SmartLead, an email is sent, a reply is received. As these happen, I can take those events, map them, and push them to HubSpot. Okay. I remember saying like, how hard could it be? Yeah. There's this quote, we do things not because they're easy, but because we thought they would be easy. That's the entrepreneur's mantra. Yeah. So that was it. The pinboard, the pinboard guy said that. I think about it. It's on my LinkedIn. I think about it all the time. I remember literally being like, oh yeah, like how hard could it be? And I said that to him. And so this is May 2023. So okay, did we miss a part here? Because you did try to build Intro CRM. Oh yes. So my agency was called Intro CRM. Okay. Yes. Sorry, I covered some of the. I skipped some of the SaaS stuff because it was never a SaaS. Okay. I tried doing Intro CRM as a SaaS, and my agency just became Intro CRM. But I never had a single paying customer. I built something in Bubble. Oh man, okay. Sorry, I forgot. I haven't thought about that. In like a while. No, that's okay. Yeah. So your first, it was so bad I don't even remember it. My first attempt, it was a CRM. Yes.
So you were doing this agency, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to try to build some software.
Yes, right.
And then you built this tool called InterCRM in Bubble, but it didn't really take off. It didn't really work.
No, not at all. So it was like, my thought was like, I was using Basecamp. Oh man, sorry. Oh, I totally spaced on this chapter.
That's
so fine. I was using Basecamp, and I was like, oh, Basecamp, they're discontinuing Highrise. Like, there's no CRM like Basecamp, and they're not doing Highrise anymore. There should be a simple CRM for everybody. That everybody can use.
There's opportunity. And I mean, Highrise was, I think, doing, I don't know, 3 to 5 million a year or something like that. Like it was on Basecamp scale, it wasn't successful, quote unquote, but for most of us, that would be an amazing business.
Exactly. And I thought like, okay. And I really looked up to Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansen. And part of my idea of like going from agency to SaaS was like exactly what they had done. So they were really influential in my mind at the time. Of like, you know, I think that they, I don't know. It's hard to know. When I'm being like self-critical, I would say, well, they were really running a design agency. They were really craftspeople, and you know, what was I doing? But I think I'm probably being a little hard on myself. I think like I was doing hard stuff, and I think it ultimately has translated into a good product. And so it's like, sometimes it's hard when you see these people from afar, you kind of, it feels like unattainable of like, but they're just normal guys too, working hard and doing great things, but they're, you know, just people too. In hindsight now, I feel like I, created too much distance in my mind between what they were to do and what I would be able to do, you know, of like, how could I ever do that?
They're just humans too. I mean, they are very gifted in many ways, but earlier in my career, I applied for a job there and flew to Chicago and spent a day with the team. And that was my sense after that day, was I had like kind of put them up on a pedestal. But then after spending a day with them, I'm like, oh, these are just human beings. Like they are, again, they are good at what they do. They're skilled. But it wasn't like magical. It was just like, these are just people doing work, and they've achieved something.
I think they would probably be like the first ones to say that, right?
Yeah, I think
they
so
would be
too.
Like, I mean, I don't think, you know, they have a brand. They did it early. They've done it at an incredible scale, and I think So yes. So Intro CRM was my first SaaS idea. I built it with Bubble myself. I got help from. So my first idea was an integration. I was like, okay, so there should be a CRM that integrates with Basecamp, because I thought the first tool that people adopt is project management software. Because like you have a couple of clients and you don't need a CRM yet. So you start with a project management software like Trello or Basecamp, and then you start to get more clients, and then you realize, oh, I kind of have to manage these leads. I need a CRM. And so my thought was the first thing that should integrate should be a CRM, but the core system of record is actually the project management tool, and they kind of go back and forth. So that was my first idea. And so I had Lola, Lunchpail Labs. She built the integration for me. We integrated with Trello and Basecamp, and oh gosh, I can't remember it now, but there was like, I think maybe a third project management tool that we integrated with, because I was working with all these founders and they were in project management tools all day. And I was like, oh yeah, like, so they would maybe use this, and they're not using HubSpot because it's too bloated. And there's too much to do.
And so you tried to sell it to folks, but it just didn't work?
I was like, well, so like we have this basic CRM and it comes with these services.
Okay.
And they were like, we just want to work with you. We don't want your CRM.
Got it. So when you pitched people on it, they were like, we just want the services part. Why do you think they didn't want the CRM? Like, what were they using instead?
They just like didn't check it, didn't log into it. I had like an amazing client, and she was just very kind. And I felt like if anyone, she would have just like logged in just out of like curiosity and sympathy or pity. And even she had never logged in. So I was like, okay, this like nobody cares about this really.
Yeah. Do you think it was, I mean, this is what's interesting to me. Oops, I'll just share this for anyone watching. I can show the original kind of website you had here.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I haven't seen this in so long.
So, I mean, to me, I think what's interesting about this is your hypothesis seems reasonable. And so then, there's different questions. Is it the way you're marketing it? Is it the way you're positioning it? Is it the actual product isn't solid? So those folks that weren't logging in, what were they doing instead? Like, what were they using instead of your CRM? Were they just using no CRM? Like there wasn't actually any movement there?
Yeah, they would like use nothing, or they would use a Google Sheet, or they would just kind of manage it out of their inbox. I think there's like a version of this, but I don't think I have founder market fit to build it. It has to be like a product led thing. It would have to be like you just drop in, and like now with AI and these AI native tools, I could imagine there being a CRM that connects with Gmail. And it's like, and if your business is small and simple enough, if it connects to your calendar and your inbox, it will maintain their data model for you and create little deals for you. I could actually see that today.
Yeah.
And that would be good enough for this kind of user. Because the problem is the entry. Like logging in, logging out, updating fields, like it just wasn't worth their time to do it. Like,
yeah.
And then when they got big enough, they hired somebody to do it.
Yeah.
And then that person wanted a real tool. Right?
Yeah. And then they would, so you were in this kind of in between. Intro CRM as a software product was like in an in between state.
Yeah.
And that was like not quite right.
Yeah. It just didn't quite land. But I was right that people like the core idea of like these things don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
That is like a thread that has been true for a while. And like even back to the 3D printing company, and even back to the ERP consulting company, like partnerships has been like the thread of growth through like 15 years of my career through the companies that I've grown.
Yeah.
That is like a continuity thing. Like my idea of like these things don't talk to each other. That is now fundamentally what Outbound Sync is built on today.
I think that is such a crucial observation. It doesn't mean your hypotheses will always be correct, but that alone is just true. And in an AI world, I feel like that's more true than ever. Like everybody's typing into ChatGPT and Claude, but there's still not a lot of glue between, like Claude could tell you to go do something, but then there's this chasm that you've got to jump over. You're the one that's got to go do what it just told you to do.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more and more glue needed between these things.
Yes.
And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity just in that. Even, like Zapier integrations break all the time, or they're not quite right, or there's just all of these holes, all of these little opportunities, all of these little friction points where it's like, another one I've observed is if you go to a retail store, I would ask owners about what they were doing, and they're still entering inventory manually. And you'd think, oh man, like there's a barcode on every product they get in. And you'd think that the supplier or the distributor could just send them some sort of JSON, some sort of data that would just populate their point of sale system. But still in 2025 and still with modern point of sales like Square, they're still entering data in manually. And again, maybe there's not enough money there or friction, like the economics of all that, of the opportunity might not be there, but the thread is correct. Yeah. And I think you've identified, like there's still so much manual data entry right now. There's lots of opportunities here if you're like looking.
I think so, absolutely. And here's the thing. So someone would say, well, yeah, of course you got to enter this thing into Claude, and then you got to go to the other thing. Well, that's where MCP servers come in. And that's why, agentic workflows are so exciting.
Yeah.
Look, ask any developer, hey, tomorrow I'm going to publish our database schema. Nothing will be lost, no security issues. I'm just going to publish it and post it online. And would you be proud of that? Do you have any issues maybe with the tables and the labels? Do you feel like our database is well documented if you were to get hit by a bus tomorrow?
Yeah.
I mean, how many developers would be like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Open kimono. Let's let the world see. And so if that's the case, if the developer who's building and maintaining the code doesn't feel like it's exceptionally well documented to them, then how the heck is Claude going to know what to do?
Yeah.
It's going to stumble. It's going to stumble in the tables, and it's going to stumble in and you can say, well, they'll figure it out. Well, how?
Yeah.
There's all these nuances, especially like when you get to the edge cases, and the edge cases are sometimes what matter the most.
The edge cases are what's real. This is why every time I look at a demo, like somebody releases some sort of demo, it's like, okay, this is not a real company. This is not a real use case. This is not nothing. This is all fantasy. But, come into my world, and it's even like like right now, when I am trying to level audio, I use this tool called Uline Audio Meter or whatever. It tells me the loudness in loofs. But then I take a screenshot of that, bring it into Claude, then give it there's these built-in Apple audio filters. I say, here's the audio filter, AU Dynamics. Tell me what to use here, like how much gain, how much release time, all that stuff. That is friction.
Right.
And you'd think, there's a modern world, like maybe with Apple shortcuts I could do something, or maybe, and the truth is it's still a lot of friction to get something from one system to another. And for most users, that still exists. And there's just a lot of opportunity there.
Yes.
Like if there was a tool that, in my case, like maybe a web app or something that, automatically gave me a loudness score for my raw audio and then told me what to do, or just automatically did it for me, I might pay for that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. But on the other hand, maybe I wouldn't.
That's how you discover problems. Yeah, well, that's where and that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
But no, I think that like with AI, imagine if you had like a library, like a physical library, but like no card catalog.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, how are you going to find the book? And and at some point you're expending, and this is the thing I think people aren't talking about. They say, oh, this is the worst it's ever going to be. It's always going to get better. Like, well, maybe there's also a lot of money being spent right now. And like, at some point there's going to need to be a return on these things. And at some point they're going to start charging more. And so, yes, I understand that in theory things will get better, but like nothing gets better forever.
Yeah.
The only thing that grows infinitely is cancer cells, and then you have like system collapse. So it's just like, I like AI. We use it. I tried building a GPT wrapper. So let's talk those other SaaS ideas. So Intro CRM didn't work. But then I got into this. They wanted the service. So I did the service. And then they said, okay, well, I'm giving them lead lists to give me feedback to score them so I can make them better lists, better fits.
Yeah.
Because I'm using like database tools like ZoomInfo and Apollo. And so I'm giving them Google Sheets. And so I was like, oh, this is a SaaS. It's Lead Rater. I built it with Glide. I give you like a sample set of leads. You can swipe through it like a dating app. Say which ones you like, say which ones you don't. I'm going to take that feedback and I'm going to go build a better list.
That also seems like a good idea.
Yeah, it wasn't like the worst. It's like, kind of like an LLM concept, right? It's like reinforcement training from the person who knows. It just like. It took a lot of work, and again, like they weren't spending the time on it. I don't know. It just, for whatever reason, it didn't quite click. People didn't want to do it, or they were just getting too lost in the weeds. And I was like, yeah, like I understand what you're saying, but we just need to send some email, and if it's not a fit, they just won't get back to us. It's okay. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I don't know. It just didn't work.
Oh, that's such an interesting. The thought I just had, because you've mentioned this twice now, which is like they couldn't take the time or make the effort to log in, or they couldn't take the time or make the effort to log in, and in this case score some leads or whatever. I think this happens a lot more than we realize, which is there's just a certain category of applications where you're not going to get people to log in, and that's difficult. It's like I'll use this as an example. I actually love this tool and I pay for this tool, but I think it's still a good example is SEOtesting.com. I love this product. They're friends of mine. I think it's a great product, but my interaction with the product is basically at this point, 95% just through the emails they send me of here's this month's top keywords. Here's the winners and losers. Am I setting up a lot of SEO tests? Not really. And that's, I think, that because there's just only so many apps I can log into regularly.
Right.
And even like, oh, I've got these analytics. Like, you're going to log in and get these analytics. It's like, well, the only apps I really do that for is like revenue analytics because money's important. And then kind of performance-based metrics on content, like, blog website analytics and podcast analytics and YouTube analytics. I'll look at all of those. But anything outside of that, it's just like, oh, you want me to log in and score a bunch of leads? It's like,
totally.
That seems like a good idea as a concept. Like, yeah, I would like to do that. I would like to get better leads. And yeah, I could see even a fun interface like a dating app. Like I could see myself doing that. But at the end of the day, it's another thing to log into.
Exactly.
That I only have so many spaces in my life for things that I log into.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, so it just like it didn't quite click. It was so then the third idea that I had was Draft Studio. This was like an early GPT wrapper product. I actually used it internally. So in cold email, there's this thing called spin tax where you give it a word and then you give it variations of that word. So like hello, hi, hey there, greetings, good morning, good afternoon, whatever.
Yeah.
And so you could like take an email or you could take a phrase, drop it into Draft Studio. It would spin up permutations of that and then spit out spin tax that you could just drop into Smart Lead so that your emails would be different from each other, which would help with deliverability.
Yeah.
Actually, I liked it. I used it a lot. It was useful. As AI has accelerated and it's just like made some of these things less necessary. Now people are making fully unique emails every time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, I just kind of knew it didn't have a long-term potential. I liked it as an app and I used it a lot. I did have a few people who used it a lot and liked it too.
Yeah.
But it was just as a GPT wrapper, it was too simple to really go anywhere. And I kind of always knew that.
Yeah.
I was busier
that
with
also seems like the kind of thing that eventually, if I could figure out a process for doing that in ChatGPT or Claude, I would just do that.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that, but it was okay. But it was technically a SaaS. I built it in Glide. I thought about charging for it. And then so that all of those things happened between like when Intro CRM, I registered that domain in 2020.
Yeah.
And then I started building Outbound Sync in May 2023.
Okay.
So that was Outbound Sync was my fourth idea. My fifth idea, which I've like almost not really talked about very much, but it was card importer. There was like the HubSpot's default card importer is actually really not great.
Okay.
And so it was like a really basic, take a picture of your business card, scans it into HubSpot. It's actually a really big, like it's a thing. There's a lot of HubSpot comments and forum about wanting these features. I posted a YouTube video. I still get messages on LinkedIn about it.
Yeah.
People being like, hey, is card importer like still available?
Yeah.
So I actually think it like there's something, but it's not it was my fifth idea and Outbound Sync was taking off. So I just didn't do anything with it. But of the ideas, it was probably my second best idea, but it would need more around it to like become something.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is like not all of my ideas were bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's interesting is none of these ideas actually seem bad. They all seem like reasonable bets. And it's kind of like you can follow all of the advice for looking for business ideas. Like you go into the forums and what are people commenting about? You had consulting clients and you're listening to their pains and their friction. And that's all a part of it. And basically you're doing all of that work, which by the way, I think like 90% of people don't do that work, but it's that work that sets you up for some good at-bats.
Yeah.
And I think the truth is like, you look at professional baseball players. These are people who have trained their entire lives to hit baseballs, and they have a hard time hitting baseballs.
Totally.
Right? So you can do all of the foundational work, but their chances, their odds of hitting a baseball are much higher than mine are, right?
Totally.
So all of that foundational work matters. You've got to do all that work to get up to the plate and have a reasonable shot at hitting the ball. And then even then, you might hit it, you might foul, you might walk, you might just get a line drive, you might get a home run. Like those are all opportunities. Those are all, potential outcomes. But it's still like a lot of players get up to bat and they strike out.
Right.
And they're good players.
Right.
So
what's the number? It's like if you bat 300, you're in the Hall of Fame or what, there's something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually not a baseball fan.
Yeah. I'm not either, but I know there's some number where it's like not that many. And if you actually hit that many, you're like one of the best of all time. Kind of thing.
I mean, this is the whole point. I think this is why sports is in some ways, sports is a bad metaphor for business because sports really is zero sum and business has there's more opportunities. Like there can be multiple CRM software providers, and you could still win.
Totally.
So but I think what's instructive about your story and my story, and really almost everybody I know, almost very few people get up to bat and hit a line drive or a home run their first at bat. And I also see there's in entrepreneurship, there are a ton of people who have not done the foundational work. They don't have clients that they're observing and getting, like seeing where their pain points are, seeing where the gaps are, seeing where the opportunities are. They're not looking at the forums. They're not exploring and evaluating ideas in this way. They don't have a network. They don't have any skills. And so, what is the success rate of any given entrepreneur stepping up to bat? Well, it's nearly zero because there's an infinite number of people who want to do it. But like I said, I think 95% of them aren't even doing the basic foundational work to even have a chance of hitting a baseball.
Definitely.
You do the basic foundational work to give yourself a chance. And then after that, it's like, we'll see what happens.
Definitely.
I'll hit this one. Okay. It was, I barely got on base.
Yeah. Well, it's like the harder I work, the luckier I get, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I definitely think this was like a lot of work. But so because of all this, when Outbound Sync, like when I did that.
Yeah. So Outbound Sync.
And I started talking about it to people. It was like,
Outbound Sync is the idea that you're working on right now. This is the one that worked.
Yes. I've been doing this for 2 years. It's profitable. We've got 3 people on the team. We've been growing 10 to 20% every month, literally since October 2023. But there were things that were happening with it where I was like, this has never happened before.
Okay. So
this is different.
Let's explore that. So you went through these other ideas. All of them are like, maybe you get on base, but it's not really, or maybe you don't even get on base.
Yeah.
And then
maybe you buy a domain.
Yeah, maybe buy a domain. So what was the genesis of Outbound Sync? What was the observation that you're like, this is worth doing?
So, so I had that client, he said he wanted them to talk to each other. I said, okay, sounds interesting. Built out a basic version of it. And then I started posting about it on LinkedIn because LinkedIn's my only water cooler at this point.
Okay.
Because I figured like the people who, if I'm going to build something based on the space that I'm in, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
Probably. So I start posting about it there. I post about it in some WhatsApp groups and I get some people biting. So in Outbound, a lot of people are in WhatsApp groups, just by the way. I don't know why. It's very international, like very, there are some biases, but in general, it's pretty meritocratic. Like I've got a lot of people who I talk with who are like, I don't know their name, I don't know their face, I don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
But like they're in these groups and they're kind of like anonymous, like hacker chat, kind of growth hacker chats.
How did you get in those WhatsApp groups?
That's a good question. When I was running my agency, that's when I got exposure to some of those chats and like other agency owners are in some of those groups.
Okay. And they'd say, hey, you might want to join this group.
Yeah. Hey, exactly. And like one of them, like they had like just like they were promoting it to like, hey, join my group. And there's no cost or anything like that. Just kind of join the group, share best practices. There's kind of like a guild, there's like, it's kind of like there's honor among thieves. Mm-hmm. The best outbound people like all know each other and they all talk and they all share notes and they don't consider themselves as really direct competitors in a traditional way.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's very unusual.
I do think,
but I really think that,
I do think this is a key thing I do think this is a key action that a lot of founders don't take, which is you said, I'm going to get off everything that's a distraction and I'm going to go where my clients are. So LinkedIn is a natural choice. And then you're also getting in these WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
And I think when you're thinking about where to invest your time, I don't think people realize that in a given industry or category, this is why I think actual participants in a given industry or category have such an advantage over somebody who's just flying in because it looks like a good business opportunity, is you have to be simmering in that community. You have to be soaking in it. You have to be in the water every day. And there are just things you can't experience. And they're really subtle unless you have this constant drip of being in a WhatsApp group every day and seeing what people are talking about, and you're building those relationships and you're making these subconscious observations.
Yes.
And
right.
unless
Definitely.
you're doing that, like, I think it's pretty hard. I think it's hard to build a podcast hosting application if you're not a podcaster. There's just something about knowing the pain, about knowing lots of other podcasters that are trying to do it too, of knowing what it's like to conceptualize a show and then record into a shitty mic and then, try to publish it and then be listening to it and hearing background noise and like cringing and that whole process. Until you understand it in a organic way, like I could describe it to somebody, but until you've experienced it, until you know the pain of releasing something publicly and having people not respond to it or trying to get distribution for it or trying to get people to notice, you just don't understand. And it's the same thing with outbound salespeople, outbound leads people. Like, do I really understand that category as an outsider? No. And so if I try to swoop in and I'm going to compete with Harris, Justin Jackson tomorrow. I'm just going to start a new app. You have such an advantage over me. Even with ChatGPT, I could get all the like intellectual information, like tell me about the outbound world, and it might be able to, even pull in stuff from Reddit and stuff and get. It's still not the same as being in the water, as surfing that spot every single day, showing up with all the other surfers, looking at those waves, seeing the weather and how it rolls in. Like nothing compares to being in it. And I think it's actually almost, there are some entrepreneurs that have been able to serve an audience or a category that is not their own. I think it's exceedingly rare. And almost always there's some venture funding in it where you have runway to really give yourself a crash course in it. I think it's so tough. I think you got to be in it to really have an advantage, especially as a bootstrapper.
Definitely. And so what's funny about where we are today is that those two places I was spending my time represent like the two parts of the business. We'll keep riffing, but like the agencies are not our direct customer today.
Okay.
But they're our peers and they are the channel that we sell through. And I consider them friends. I mean, I've had agency partners who have gone through some personal things and like I've done, it doesn't matter the details, but like I've done personal gestures for them just because like I love them.
Yeah.
Just like I love them. And if so, like truly, I consider them like comrades. Like, yeah. And if they were here, if someone needed something, like I would do something for them. And I have done something for them, not because it's like a marketing thing, but because it's like, hey man, like I love you. We've been in this stuff together. Google shut down all these things or Microsoft, this happened, whatever. And we've kind of been through these experiences together.
Yeah.
And so, like that's real. Those are real friendships and there's real trust that gets built there over time. But the funny thing is that they are not our direct customer. We still sell to the people who are on LinkedIn. Ultimately, the bigger companies, that's where the revenue operations and the sales leaders are. But it's because I spent time with them and understood the space. That was like and I'm still in those WhatsApp groups. Like, I mean, I just use them like for joking around.
Yeah.
Like I don't be like, hey everybody, we have a webinar we're doing next week. We just like, I just like post memes and like give people a hard time and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Like just to be like, that's like my role in those communities. It's we have fun. We're having fun.
And again, that hard to replicate that.
Yeah.
To have that kind of rapport with people in the industry.
Yeah, totally.
So we should really paint a picture. So Outbound Sync, what does it do? Like what's the job it's doing for people?
Yes. So the job to be done. So we got the data. So we had this low code thing. People are interested. I started having big calls with people. I realized this is not going to work. Like I'm manually OAuthing into accounts. Someone just asked me about SOC 2. We have a make scenario. I'm like, SOC 2, I don't know. Here's make's security documentation.
Yeah.
We refactored it into full code. We go to market. It takes 4 months to build it, 2 months to refactor it. October 2023, we go to market. And the job to be done is, okay, I started with, if you're using Smart Lead and you use HubSpot, we get your data from Smart Lead into HubSpot.
Okay.
That was it. It was like simple enough if you're using these two tools. But today, it's kind of inverted. I consider us a HubSpot app or a Salesforce app. If you're a team using HubSpot and you're doing outbound, well, then if you're using these tools, we can bring your data back into HubSpot. So like fundamentally, we're a HubSpot app. We get this data in, and then as a HubSpot app or a Salesforce app, we get the data in, job one. Job two is make the data useful. So like I got a lead. Now I can route that lead to the right salesperson based on their territory or whatever the rules are.
Okay.
I can give them the context of that full thread of a conversation.
Got it.
I can see all the sent emails before that. So like reply routing.
Yeah.
Because like growth hackers were doing this in the beginning. So they would be like to their founder-led customer, here's a Slack message. And the founder would be like, great, I'll jump on a call, done.
Yeah.
But now if it's like we have mid-market customers with 1,500 employees, they need to route it to the right person. That rep needs context. They need to know what the campaign was. There's like so many more rules that are not possible the way it was being done before. So routing the replies, that's like a huge pain point.
So there's like a
the sales rep.
fire hose of leads.
Yes.
And then your app just says, okay, I've got to get these leads to the right people in the organization with the right context, with the right information.
Exactly.
Got it.
And we empower the internal revenue operations or HubSpot or Salesforce admin to build the rules for that. Routing or the like channeling the fire hose, we allow them to build it themselves inside of HubSpot and Salesforce.
Got it.
So I like sort of finally came to grips with like, I'm not going to try to make people log into anything else.
Yes. You went to where they already are. Yeah.
You want to be in HubSpot. I'm going to give you this data in HubSpot. You don't need to log in. You log into our application one time and then you're never ready to look at it again.
Yeah.
We build pipes.
Got it.
Like just use the sync. Don't worry about where the water's coming from.
And does it show up in HubSpot and Salesforce as an official app?
Yes. So we're in the marketplace in HubSpot and we're working on Salesforce App Exchange. That's like more of a process. But the biggest surprise learning I had in the beginning was that you actually don't need to be in the marketplace to get distribution through them. Yeah. So like when we talk about like building a SaaS or starting a SaaS, we had like dozens and dozens of HubSpot customers before we had a marketplace listing. Okay. So it's because I was able to get HubSpot. I posted on LinkedIn and HubSpot users were like, we're using Smart Lead. I want that in HubSpot. And they just reached out to me. Got it. And they would install it as a private connected app. So I was not using HubSpot as a direct distribution channel, if that makes sense. Yeah. I was riding the HubSpot wave, but HubSpot wasn't putting me on the board. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So if you posted on LinkedIn and said, if you have this problem and you use HubSpot, here's a solution. Exactly. And so people that were using HubSpot, it was enough for them to go, oh, I use HubSpot, and then go, oh, I have that problem. Exactly. Okay, now I'm going to pursue the solution. Exactly. Because they weren't even thinking to search for it in the marketplace because so few HubSpot teams were even using these tools. Yeah. So there was no like search discovery motion. The place that at this time, like, and even still, people are learning about these new cutting edge things in Slack and on LinkedIn. There's no like, hey, we need to go buy a digital sales room tool, or we need to go buy a landing page tool. Go search in the HubSpot marketplace and see what's available. Like that wasn't a thing. Got it. Got it. For more established, like there is for more established categories. Yeah. And so, wow, this is interesting. So you launched this thing and you're primarily getting customers through LinkedIn and relationships. Is that? Well, initially, because I still have my agency, all the revenue came from my clients. And once again, I tried to bundle them, but this time it worked. Yeah. I said, listen, I run an agency. We specialize in helping teams that use HubSpot get new leads. And we have this tool to give you those leads. It's called Outbound Sync. And they're like, yeah, sure. We need leads. If you get in HubSpot, great. We want them there. We really want the leads, but we also do want them in HubSpot. Yeah. And that was my first few customers. That was all my initial MRR. It was because of that. And then when I started to get people come in and say, hey man, your agency looks great, but like, I just need the app. That's when I was like, I have a SaaS, like not like a software. I don't have a SaaS company. Yeah. But I have a SaaS because someone is paying me only for this Heroku app that we built, that I built with the developer. Yes. So that was like the beginning of that. And so we were only selling direct for a while. So people would find us directly. And then eventually I wound down my agency. And then it was like all software revenue. Yeah. And you shared your graph with me. Yeah. It's pretty like, it's like 10, 15% a month, you'd say, in terms of growth. Here, let me just look at it here on my side. Let me see if I can share one. We're not like doing the build in public thing with numbers, but I can share my screen with
sure, yeah, there's a little share button down there. You should be able to use that.
Yeah, so this is like the transition. I've not talked about this with anybody anywhere yet. Nobody's asked.
Yeah,
this is the journey from services revenue to software. So purple is my services or consulting revenue, and green is my SaaS. This is gross top line, money made. And so if you're just listening, I mean, it's pretty much a crossfade. I mean, you can describe it probably better than me, but yeah, I mean, this is kind of,
on one hand, so starting in 2023, most of your revenue is consulting. And then you see around, I guess this would be just at the end of 2023, you start to get software revenue. And then the software revenue just grows every single month. And then gradually the consulting revenue, well, not gradually, actually, it comes off, you can see the transition point where you're just like, oh, it's time to switch to software. And I mean, yeah, we don't have to share the numbers, but like, you're doing well. Like, this is, you've done it, right?
Thanks, man. Yeah, for sure. I feel like we're there. I mean, I'll tell you this transition point, May 2024. So friend of the pod, friend of so many people, Ruben Gamez, when things were taking off, I emailed Ruben and I was like, hey man, I think things are going pretty well. Like, tell me about Tiny Seed. Like, I've got this agency. I have these expenses. Like, we have childcare costs. I have a mortgage. We have 2 cars.
Yeah.
Like, my wife works in healthcare. She's got a great job and she's making money, but we just have a lot of combined income and I can't not make money.
Yeah.
What if this keeps going well? And then like a month later, I was like, oh my God, I need help. Like, I'm having calls with people that are way better prospects than I've ever had before, asking questions that I am not at all equipped to answer and I don't have time to answer.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing that I don't think people, unless you've been in it, it's really hard to explain, is that like, if you have a multi-$1,000 a month retainer client, and then you have like a multi-$100 a month SaaS client, how do you balance tasks between those two things?
Yeah.
Like, it's different. The math doesn't math. Like, one, this pays my mortgage, but this one is valued at the top line. The other, my services are valued at bottom line, like EBITDA or whatever, like how much profit they're generating. The software is valued on paper at the top line of how much the MRR is or ARR is.
Yeah.
But like this isn't a lot of money, and that is a lot of money. But this is technically worth more. And then like, this is a little fix, but it's just a little bug. And this is like something where if I don't get back to them, they'll fire me right away.
Yeah.
And so like, it's impossible to decide what to do at any given moment.
Yeah.
Because the comparison is it's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
And so that was like the appeal. So I started kind of coming back into like, oh yeah, Tiny Seed. Oh yeah, like this is like, there's a thing for this. And so we ended up throwing our hat in and getting into Tiny Seed. And I made the decision to shut down my agency, even though at the time my SaaS revenue was 20% of what my services revenue was.
Yeah.
I felt like the momentum was just like sort of undeniable, but I needed a bridge.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it to grow fast enough.
Yeah.
To pay my bills. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had never gotten this level of success before. And so I didn't know how to like the learning I had done in the beginning, it got me here. And then all of a sudden I like slammed into a ceiling of like, I don't know what to do. I don't even know who to ask for help.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, what should I be prioritizing right now? And so for us, like, that was like a godsend of like, okay, this will allow me to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
And then hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, that's really stressful because I just shut down this thing that has been paying my bills since 2019.
Yeah.
And has been my lifeline.
Yeah.
Now I'm committing to this. I switched. I mean, this is like a little detail, but it was an LLC. So I was able to do owner draws and it was very tax advantaged. And now I'm switching to a C Corp where I can't pull money out of the business. And like, I can't I don't have the flexibility that I had before. So all of a sudden it was like, this business has to work. And so it was a really, but it felt like, again, like I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Like it felt like this is so obviously a better choice that even though it's a hard one, it's the right one. And so that turned out to be the case.
I've never heard anyone describe like the real, I've never heard anyone describe the way that, I've never heard anyone describe using Tiny Seed as a bridge before. So you've got this like clear momentum with the SaaS. It's growing month over month. But in order to transition from consulting to this new thing, you need something to bridge the gap. And it sounds like in your case, that was both money, but also just having more people in your court that could help you, could help strategize, could help make decisions.
Both, definitely.
Yeah. Did you use the money for hiring, like, or was it just as runway for yourself?
Yeah, all three. So I use it a little bit runway for myself. I brought on CSM. I brought our engineer on full time.
What's a CSM?
Oh, sorry, customer success manager.
Oh, okay, yep.
And then engineer on full time, and then we also got SOC 2,
which
was totally worth it. But like just like upfront capital intensive things. And the other thing that happened is at the Tiny Seed, like when the founders all met up, I had all of a sudden agencies started texting me and they were like, "Hey dude, I heard you're winding down. I've always been curious about Outbound Sync. I actually have a client that needs this." And it was because I shut down my agency, I think they felt a lot more comfortable working with me.
Yeah.
And so I set up our partner program May when we joined Tiny Seed. And now it's like 80% of our business.
80% of like revenue leads? Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So now so agencies who I've been friends with this whole time and I've always been like sharing notes with them.
Yeah.
Now they have clients who come in and they say, "Listen, we're a 1,500 employee company, Series D company. We have money.
Yeah.
We have people. Not the problem.
Yeah.
We just need the best. We need someone who's willing to take chances and do really interesting things." And like, that's what agencies are for.
Yeah.
Even like Nike works at agencies, right? Famously. Yeah. But they say, "But we use Salesforce."
Yeah.
And so we need this data. We need it in Salesforce. We need to be able to attribute it, and it needs to be compliant. And so that's what we solve. We solve all of those problems, and we let these really brilliant growth hackers do their thing. And then we connect them to the people who have the willingness to pay and the desire to pay, but have rules that need to be followed. And so that has become this huge flywheel for us. And we're helping them grow. We're helping them move up market because they're getting bigger and better customers because they can tell these stories.
I see. So this is not like a standard like affiliate program. This is a program, a partners program where you are giving the partners leads.
They bring them to us. We refer some. Yeah. I've referred Anthropic, so that's a pretty good one.
Ooh, yeah.
But we don't have a ton of leads. They bring them into us generally.
Yeah.
But what we bring is we bring the tool and then we bring a lot of support. So we set up a Slack Connect channel with them and with their customer, and our CSM is in there. And so our customer success manager is in there. So if they have CRM questions, if they need to get in the weeds, like we say, "Hey, we will help think through this with your customer so that you can do the thing that you're good at. You are not a Salesforce admin."
Yes, got it.
You understand how to sift through signals and how to get the right people. We'll make sure that it's a lead in Salesforce with the right fields populated, created at the right time, assigned to the right person, kind of thing.
So for your partners, you are enabling a whole new category of business for them.
Yes.
And giving them a superpower. When they have a new client, they're like, "Oh, wow, I can use Outbound Sync for this. Outbound Sync is going to provide me with all the support and the tooling to do this job that might be too big for them to do normally or whatever."
Yeah. It's just hard. It is a software required. The only way to do this is with software.
Yeah. And
the funny thing is that these people are like, they have their own like dev resources. Typically they have tons of really sophisticated internal tooling. It's just like hard enough and enough of a headache.
Yeah.
That there's enough of an opportunity for us to build something.
Yeah. For them to outsource it to you.
Yeah.
And so
they're happy to, by the way. Like I've had people tell me like, "Dude, I've got a bunch of vendors where we're spending a bunch of money. Outbound Sync is the only one that I don't even feel like negotiating with you because I don't ever want to think about Salesforce."
I mean, that's a great signal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole beauty about SaaS is you're basically socializing the cost of software, but also support across thousands of customers.
Exactly.
And so, I'm looking at your pricing right now. It starts at $99 and it goes up from there, $249, $499, and then enterprise. So that's a pretty good deal. For $499, you're getting email and Slack support.
I think we go over the top with support.
Yeah.
I think if someone were to come in today, they would be like, "You got to dial that back."
Yeah. I mean, I think we go over the top with support at Transistor too. And
having been a Transistor customer, I agree. And it was awesome. And I loved the experience.
I think that's just like, again, it's one of those things where if the whole world is going to AI chatbots and support docs or poorly paid customer support people that aren't professionals, then what's one way to stand out? It's having unbelievable customer support. And it takes less people than, to support 36,000 users on Transistor, which is probably, 8,000 paying accounts. That's 2 full-time people to do that. So it's an investment, but it's less people than you might think to do that work.
Well, and people remember, and then you get better feedback. The AI support thing, I've had such negative experiences with that. And the thing is, like, because we have ears to the ground, like, we're able to ship better features. And it's, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
To me,
that's the other thing is that, AI might answer people's questions and then it might give you analytics on the most, but it can't see the subtext. It can't observe things. It can't make notes and say, oh, man, like, I can really dig in here and see what's motivating this customer, and then also what's causing their problem. And those are opportunities. And if your job as an entrepreneur or a founder is to correctly identify opportunities, like that's your whole job. And it's like, what are the resources I use to do that? Well, part of it is these back channels, these WhatsApp groups and Slack channels and all that stuff. Part of it is me having an audience on LinkedIn and watching what's going on there. And a big part of it is observing real customers. And instead of just answering their question and moving on, just taking a break and pause. Hey, let me dig into this with you a bit. Like, can we jump on a call and talk about that? Can I just ask you some more questions? Very few people are willing to ask one follow-up question. I think we need to be asking 2 or 3 or 4 follow-up questions. That's where you kind of really dig into things. And the, AI just wants to move on.
Right.
And
resolved. Anything else?
Yeah. And our propensity as humans is to want to move on. But the founder's job is to say, let's slow this down. Hey, tell me more about that. Like, what's going on there? What are you using right now? Okay. And is there, like, you're paying for that? Okay. Is it working for you? What's working? What's not? That's the magic right there.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. So yeah, I mean, for us, that's super important. And we're in this funny spot where, like, all the time people are like, why can't I just do this with Zapier? I think it's like a really good bootstrap business opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a venture scale business, but it's like Tiny Seed was willing to take a chance on it. And like, I needed that bridge.
Yeah.
And there's just no way I could have done it otherwise. I mean, those like couple months where I was doing both was by far the hardest period of the last 6 years.
Yeah.
By far. I mean, I remember I was on a call with a guy. He was in Poland. We were on a call at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, what time is it? I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, can you just tell me if this is working yet?
Yeah.
Like, it was
rough.
Excruciatingly painful.
Yeah.
We went through some family medical stuff in between, which I don't really talk about publicly, but it was extraordinarily difficult. And we've like subsequently had a second child. And so it's like life just is happening.
Yeah.
While all of this is happening too.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of reasons why this is like a weirdly cool opportunity. We're sitting between a few things. There's a lot of reasons why people think like Zapier could do it or Make could do it, or couldn't I just do that with ChatGPT?
Yeah.
But because we're listening to customers and we're finding these weird little problems, like I'm on a demo call and I show someone like, oh, and like you can do this in Salesforce. They're like, oh, that's okay. That's it.
Yeah.
But like you wouldn't know unless we talked to like 50 other Salesforce people.
Yeah.
We built that one tiny little feature where it's like, it's not documented anywhere, but it's just how that part of Salesforce works.
Yeah.
And if you talk to someone who knows, then you know. And if you don't, then you won't build it.
And being able to observe their reactions and everything. So everything you're telling me, Harris, just reminds me of this article by Rob Snyder called How Loom Found Pull. And the idea is that you want, instead of like pushing a solution all the time, you want where there's just natural pull. People are naturally being pulled towards your solution. And he has this this poll hypothesis that I think is so great. It goes, what are we designing for? And number one criteria, there's a project on their to-do list. Number two criteria, that is unavoidable right now. So there's a project on their to-do list and it's unavoidable. They need to deal with it. Number three, they consider a list of options to get it done. So, okay, we got a problem. We need to get it done now. Here's our list of options. We're going through this right now with Transistor because we're trying to find an HLS video streaming hosting solution. So we're going through a list of providers, but they think their options have serious limitations. And I think we've all experienced this, right? Like, here's something. So this is a poll hypothesis. And they go through Loom's whole company story. And their first one was open test. Didn't work. Great hypothesis. Just like you had, I think, some really good early hypotheses. Didn't work. Then they go to the second one. Here's the second one. Open test is the product version 2. That didn't work. Okay, now we're going to create a product called Open Vid. And they're getting closer and closer. And then finally, they get to Loom, which is, this very successful video recording and sharing tool, which was acquired by Jira for $975 million. And what I like about this story and your story, I see it mirrored in both, is that Rob asks the question, like, was that original hypothesis wrong? Maybe not, because there's actually some other companies that release products exactly with that hypothesis, and it worked. So there's a mix of success factors, timing, and maybe the skill of the founder or the connections or the product approach or whatever. Any given hypothesis can work, but all you can do as an entrepreneur is keep iterating and keep trying to find the thing that's going to work for you, work for your customers, work in your world. And it just seems like you went through this exact journey. Multiple.
Yeah, I mean, if you scroll up that thing, I mean, this totally mirrors. So like today, like I had this week, we've been recently we changed our pricing, and since we changed our pricing I changed our pricing in late April after I went to MicroConf.
Yeah,
and I listened to Marcos Rivera. It's called street pricing.
Yeah,
I listened to his MicroConf talk literally 5 times, and then plus all the other random stuff.
Okay,
and I think we've since then conversations have been going even better. So it's like for us, like who are we designing for? It's revenue teams using HubSpot and Salesforce.
Yeah.
So they typically have multiple salespeople, and they're running this like outbound motion. They need to connect. There's a project on their list. Literally, someone said, both people, my sales calls this morning, both said, I have it on my list to figure out how to get these two things to talk to each other.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable because they're spending, the agency is the secret sauce for us, because when they're really serious, they hire an agency. Mm-hmm. And so there's we're spending a lot of money on this really good agency. So we need results and we need to attract what's happening.
Yeah.
That's the secret to why it's working so well, is because they're committed to the outcome versus internal teams play around with outbound, but varying results, and there's no urgency.
Yeah.
So it's they're shipping campaigns next week. We've got to get everything connected or whatever. They look at Zapier or Make or N8N or building it themselves, or not integrating them is always an option. And then ultimately some of those teams decide that Outbound Sync is going to help them get the data the way they need it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a way to kind of forcibly shoehorn this into any story, but I do feel like as I go through this, it feels like we have a version of this today.
And I think this is the point, is that if you can't honestly and realistically and reasonably fill out this hypotheses worksheet, already that's a no-go. Now, the hypotheses worksheet does not mean you're automatically going to hit a home run. But the way you just described it, there's just these key points. It's this is a project on their list that's unavoidable right now. How do we know that? They've hired an agency. They've invested time and money and resources. This is everything in a business. John and I have been struggling with sales tax forever, if you've listened to this podcast. And it's been on our list forever. And then it reaches a boiling point where it's unavoidable. We've got to deal with this right now. We are going to invest real time, real money. How do we know? Well, it's become Justin's number one priority. It's my number one project for the next 2-3 months. We are going to get this done. And in our case, we hired somebody, a contractor, to help us. Just like I was meeting with them every week. We're strategizing. We're trying to figure out what exactly do we need to do. We're booking meetings. Like, that's how you know it's serious. And again, there's no guarantees, but the stronger the signal is here and the less you delude yourself, like, when there's real money being invested and you have that key observation like you had, which was they've hired an agency, this is serious. Like, now this has gone from nice to have, or yeah, that sounds good, or to no, we're pushing, we're doing this.
Exactly. And yeah, there's board level metrics. Like, we have customers who are like, the VP of marketing is like, I have a board meeting next week.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about this Outbound Sync data because our internal admin is going to build a report for me for my board meeting kind of thing.
And you can, in customer interviews and investigations, you can ask questions that will reveal this, which is, what are you doing about this problem right now? So you say it's on your list. You've got a project that's unavoidable, that you say is unavoidable. You say it's on your list. What are you actually doing to solve that? And if they're like, not much, I haven't really looked for anything yet. Like, what have you considered? Not much. It's like, okay, this is, yes, sure, it's on your list, but I don't see actual motion. Like, the customer has to be in motion in a real serious way for it to work. This is like, I built that project with a college grad called Swag Fan. It's like, making swag. Now, I use it. It's great. But that is not a serious project on most people's list. And so it's never going to have that same pull that something else would. There's something way higher on most founders' lists and most marketing people's lists than we got to get swag out right now to our fans and influencers and everything.
Well, so the urgency thing, I mean, for sure, there's so much to that. Last thing on this, where I think it's super interesting, is like, the value goes both ways for the agencies too.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be able to prove results.
Yeah.
And so when we get the data into that important system, they can show the customers the value.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, it helps with retention too.
Yeah.
And it helps them get credit when there's conversion that they didn't directly drive.
Mm-hmm.
So I email a company. Let's say you're doing the sales tax thing, and I end up emailing like Helen for some reason, and I'm like with Numeral. Numeral solves sales tax for SaaS companies. I email Helen. Helen's like, "Oh, this isn't my thing," but I forward it to Justin.
Yeah.
Then Justin goes to Numeral's website, signs up. The cold agency that emailed Helen, and then the next day you signed up for Numeral, like, that's a conversion that they're normally never getting credit for.
Yes.
So like, we're so in the middle of lots of things, I think we're in the middle of like trying to create win-wins across things and just solve annoying problems so that different people can talk. And like, the Swag Fan thing is a funny example of like, who's feeling that? Who's like, God, I really need this swag.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of weird ways where, I don't know, ultimately, like, I'm not sure why this is working right now. If you add it all up, I don't know. It feels like it's going really well. I don't know what's going to happen next. And I couldn't really, if I had to recreate it, I couldn't, because I couldn't really boil it down to like, okay, here's the 3 things, or here's the 5 things.
But this is the important piece I want people to take away. This is a journey. It's like you deciding as a founder, I'm going to do this. And at the beginning, you think it's going to be a 1 or 2 year project. Like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to get this done in 2 years and I'm going to have a great business. And the truth is this is a lifetime project, and you are on a journey of iterating and trying to get closer to your goal. And again, every at bat you have, you got to be doing something, some fundamentals to give yourself a better shot. But you also have to go up to bat. You have to make some swings like you did. And then eventually something will hit, and you won't know completely why. You'll have some ideas. As an outsider, I think I can see a lot of characteristics about why Outbound Sync worked. It just has a lot of built-in momentum. You're in an existing juggernaut of an ecosystem with HubSpot and Salesforce. There's so much money in motion there. And so for you to capture some of that value or create new value inside that ecosystem, it just makes sense. And I think people need to follow this example and understand there's no guarantees. So you could get up to bat 10 times and it might not work out. But what you're doing as a founder is you're basically betting that if I keep at this, if I keep improving, if I keep learning, if I keep iterating, one of these at-bats is going to produce something. And yeah, dude, I'm just so pleased for you. Congrats on getting it to here. This is such an awesome success story.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I learned so much. I mean, I feel like I was learning so much for so long from you. So when we connected and talked about coming back on here, it felt like a really, like a full circle thing. I was happy to do it. I feel like it's the end of the beginning now.
Yeah.
So now like the work begins, but it feels like we're default alive. I'm not like really anxious about paying bills or the threat of not being able to pay bills sort of somewhat soon. And so now I'm hoping I can breathe and start even taking some bigger risks than we have before. Because like in the last 6 years, every time I placed a bet, it kind of had to pay off, or I had to do or be such a little bet that it could lose.
Oh yeah. I mean, once you get out of that scrappy bets stage where like good investors, good people who are good at making bets, eventually the whole idea is that they are betting resources that they can lose.
Right.
So it's like, this is a pretty good bet, but if I lose this bet, it's not the end of the world. Whereas when you're at the beginning and you're bootstrapping and you're scrappy, it's like, if I lose this bet, like it could be rough, you know?
Yeah.
And it felt like every bet leading up to Transistor was like that for me. It was like, okay, like I am kind of betting the farm every time.
Exactly.
That's why it's so hard. But yeah, now at this stage, I think you're about to enter a really fun stage. Running a company is always hard, but at this stage, when you have more resources and more breathing room and more calm and more margin, then it just becomes about showing up every day. I just think my job is showing up every day and moving this giant rock further down the path. Like I'm just pushing it a little bit more, and those efforts are kind of multiplied in a way that didn't happen before because there is existing pull. So yeah, I'm excited for you. For folks who want to check out what you're doing, where should they find you? On LinkedIn and at the website?
Yeah, outboundsync.com. And then, LinkedIn, Harris Kenny, look me up. As we've been embracing our partners, I post really weird, funny stuff like about Pokemon, and I've been posting memes, and just like we found our ICP, and so I'm just having fun like posting for them.
Oh, sweet.
And so if you like kind of funny, goofy LinkedIn, go there. If you're looking for inspiration, it's not the place.
Sweet. Well, thanks so much for being here. I'm going to read out our supporters because we haven't done our Patreon shout outs in a while. So thanks to everyone who's still supporting the show on Patreon. We've got Pascal, we've got Greg Park, we've got Mitchell Davis, we've got Marcel Fale, we've got Bill Kondo, we've got Ward from memberspace.com, Evander Sassy, Austin Lovelace, Michael Sitver, Colin Gray, and Dave Junta. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Harris. See you soon.